So, my Fursona has been banned from Subscribestar. What does that mean? Alright, well, for starters, let's just take a little look at my dude and just sort of like try to figure out what about him might be disallowed. What are people objectifying from? What specific detail? Technically not my Fursona. This is the bento avatar I customized to look slightly like my Fursona, but isn't really that him, but close enough. They share this one specific trait, which is that down there, the legs, they're digitigrade. They're fun legs. The big ass thighs, the bendy that goes there, the bendy that goes there, the bendy goes there. Technically, they're basically like standing on the balls of their feet. Like if you stand on the balls of your feet and your knees point forward, I can't really express this because I'm not in full body tracking. You kind of get the equivalent of these kinds of Fursona characters, like that's the whole digitigrade design. So what happened is that Patreon banned a bunch of things, and then so a bunch of furry artists that draw porn and stuff like that fled to Subscribestar as a bastion. In fact, I think that Subscribestar basically advertised themselves as being the exception to this kind of stuff. Like, haha, we're the place that you should go to because of how everyone else is going insane with moderation and so on. And then they did it, and I'm so blown away by the exact phrasing they use, because they banned a lot of the usual stuff, a lot of fictional kinks, a lot of like, ooh, dubious consent, oh no, my fictional characters are doing naughty things. But in particular, they tried to find exact rules to use to moderate furries, because on a regular basis, these platforms try to figure out what to do with furries, and they try to like get a little too specific, trying to figure out like what the line is between like normal furry art and some level of bad thing. In this specific case, the way they explained it is sexual content involving anthropomorphic characters, commonly referred to as furry characters, may be permitted only when all of the following conditions are met. And there's like a bunch of stuff like the characters do not appear to be underaged. The content does not violate any other section of this policy. No sexual interaction occurs between humans and animals or animal-derived creatures. What the fuck does that mean? What is an animal-derived creature? But then they got really specific here. The characters possess clearly humanoid anatomy, such as arms, human-like knee orientation, and an upright body posture. They banned anyone that doesn't have human-like knee orientation. What are you talking about? I just feel insane here. Human-like knee orientation. You can't have fun legs. Fun legs are illegal now. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing? What the fuck is any of this? It's so deeply frustrating. And like, it reminds me of when I made the previous post about the furry visual novels, where itch.io banned a ton of adult visual novels, and also did a blanket ban of monetizing adult visual novels. So if you want to have an adult game, you got to turn off any even optional monetization and instead fund entirely through Patreon and so on. I had to turn off that feature on all of my games in order to get them to show up at all, which is very frustrating. So when I made this year's second Game Jam game, 3 Days to Live, there was just no option for people to give me any money for that, which is a bummer, because last time I sent all of the money that since November made through voluntary donations to our artist, and I just don't get to do that this time. It's frustrating. I thought that was a fun thing to get to do afterwards, like, look at all the support that people gave us. No, sorry, queer expression just doesn't get to have fun anymore. Great. This is all upsetting because, like, one, like, it was easy to forget this was happening because there has been multiple new wars since then, and the Epstein files and a billion other horrible things, which, speaking of the Epstein files, here's a thing about how the president's probably a pedophile, and tons of people in power are a part of a human trafficking ring, but sure, let's police queer art for hypothetical harm that doesn't exist, basically. Great. Glad that that's our priority. But it was easy to forget this stuff was going on in this giant mess, but it never stopped. Things never really got better. Several platforms have continued to crack down, and we're getting to a point where basically every payment processor or every third-party service that can anyway let you pay a furry artist for the work that they make is increasingly banning huge percentages of the people on that platform, if not everyone altogether, to the point where, as a community, we're on the verge of just being cut off from commerce, because these companies, which are third-party payment processors, like, they mediate the entire concept of being able to pay people anything. They run the economy on online spaces where you can't just give somebody cash, generally speaking. And increasingly, they're making it impossible to have customers online if they deem that you're somebody that should be removed from these spaces. That's just deeply upsetting. They shouldn't have this power at all. And I'm increasingly not sure what we can even do about this stuff. But just so we're clear, hasn't stopped, and the explanations are increasingly stupid. This one in particular, like, it really reminds me of last time with itch.io where they banned poop. And I'm like, wait. This long list of things you're banning is a bunch of things that are, at the very least, arguing from a moral framework. Like, this thing is a form of abuse, that thing's a form of abuse, that's a bad power dynamic. It's all stupid arguments because it's fiction, so it's not actually abuse of any real people, but they're like, it's bad to have Botus rippers. We're going right back to how people would try to say that women are falling for degenerate media whenever they were reading any sort of, like, aggressive romance novels, which were extremely popular for incredibly long time. We're doing that again, and we're relitigating that endlessly. But then amongst all these obviously more moral arguments that were shit arguments, but they're based in that framework, they banned poop. And I was like, what? Like, I hate poop. I do not like that. I do not like scat as a kink whatsoever. I immediately get the fuck away every time it shows up in any context. Big anti-fan of that, but I'm not, like, gonna pretend it's a moral. Like, I don't need to moralize my icks. I don't need to manifest a bullshit moral framework for why I don't like a thing. I just don't like a thing. That's fine. I don't like calamari, and I don't like scat, so I don't engage with either of these things. I don't need to, like, have an entire moral explanation for why that is and make that up. But bizarrely, in these spaces, people feel the need to. So they did a bunch of more moral arguments, and then they just slipped in banning poop at the same time. And it's like, that's really hard to justify that you just put that in there based on personal preference, basically. And so this one being like, you cannot have a furry with cool legs. No cool legs. Weird lack of limitations around, like, genitalia and other things and whatever, but, like, specifically drew the line at legs. Gotta have a really specific kind of leg. Draw any other kind of leg, illegal. We're gonna burn your entire career down, delete your entire monetization platform, and alienate you from all of your fans, and just fucking ruin your life and your livelihood because you drew a leg bending the other way, which we're gonna be a stickler about it. As far as I can tell, digitigrade actually is not a situation where the knee is bent the other way. That's what people always say about, like, werewolves. Like, the dog leg, the leg bent, the knee bends backwards. I'm like, no, it doesn't. They're standing on their toes, basically. Like, as far as I can tell, from, like, humans to dogs to horses, the anatomy of the leg is the same series of segments of leg, all bending in the same directions. They all evolved roughly the same way. And similarly to how people say this about horses too, it's like they're standing on their toe because of how long and weird their feet are. But, like, yeah, the leg looks all zigzaggy, bendy, weird, but it's actually bending in the same directions in the same spots that the human leg does. It's just each individual bone is a different length, so it looks weird, and different parts bend more because we're standing straight up here in real as humans. And, like, as far as I can tell, dogs are the same case, where it's like that part that sticks backwards is basically their heel, and then you can see their knee. Like, they got thighs and then knee, and that same goes for werewolves and for my character and so on. You got thigh here, and that's my knee. You can see my knee. It goes forward, and then that's my heel back there is the part that I'm standing on, and that makes it digitigrade. So, like, it's not even accurate, but, like, so now we have to deal with the idea of people banning stuff based on their inaccurate interpretation of how knees even work, because they just see it being bendy and they're like, that's illegal. And it's like, what? If you make a crazy alien and their knees bend way backwards, like grasshoppers or something, like the Cloverfield monster or whatever the fuck I'm thinking about. That's the line? Is that gonna get banned? What the fuck are you doing? I just feel insane. It's precarious, it's scary. I'm very happy that I do not make money as an artist. Although I do get nervous sometimes because there are platforms that are so intrusive and big brother and spy-ish about this, that there are definitely platforms that police you for your off-platform behavior. There are cases where you can get banned from this or that platform based on something that you do elsewhere, even if it's not in your YouTube videos or not on your Patreon posts and so on. And that's deeply frustrating because that means that, like, you can get, even if you don't distribute it through that method, you can get in trouble for content that violates their terms, even if it's not on that platform. Sometimes I worry that I might, like, get in trouble if I draw a funny doodle of something and post it on Blue Sky or something, that I might get banned from YouTube for being a degenerate or something. And I'm like, what? That's not your business. It's not in my videos. Fuck off. And, like, I genuinely wonder sometimes if how those kind of rules apply. If people can be banned from YouTube or Twitch for doing things that are determined to be unacceptable by payment processors on completely different websites. And there's something to be said about how, like, a lot of the moral kinks that are also on the list really should not be moderated. There's definitely a kind of furry of the younger side that is, like, in favor of the idea that credit cards are censoring art because they think that art is bad and unethical. And I just cannot stress enough, when it comes to, like, dubious consent or other fictional kinks that are about storytelling and so on, I cannot stress enough that these are fictional roleplay. Like, the consent is implicit in that it is a piece of art you are choosing to engage with. You are consenting to engage with the art and enter that roleplay fictional space and engage with what is like a psychological experiment, essentially, like a psychological process of playing around with this or that kink or scenario and indulging in what is a fictional fantasy that doesn't harm anything. For me, like, one of the most ethical things in the world, it might be one of the most ethical forms of porn, is stuff that's drawn or written, because it's, like, almost impossible to exploit somebody beyond, like, the normal capitalism part where when people have to make a living with this shit. It's really hard to directly harm people with writing that you then post on, like, freaking fur. Oh my god, I forgot what it's called. It used to I remember its old name and I'm forgetting its new name, but, like, the furry website people post a lot of stories on, I completely blanked. But, like, when you see a fictional story of a furry walking alone in the woods and then they get stalked and tackled by a big old werewolf and, like, oh no, he's gonna have my way with me, that's not unethical. You're not being clever or insightful when you point out, like, you know, that's actually non-consensual. It's like, it's clearly a fantasy nonsense story for fun that everyone involved with is entering the magic circle and enjoying the play of this fun scenario that isn't related to real life. And you're not clever for pointing out the idea that it's technically non-consensual in the story. The story wouldn't be improved by the two characters both looking directly into the camera and saying, and I consent, and this is all a fantasy roleplay scenario, which I've seen comics do sometimes, have a final page that's like, oh, by the way, the whole thing was a joke, ha ha ha, don't get mad at me, it was technically all consensual. It's like, you can do that if you want, but, like, it's stupid to enforce and encourage that kind of behavior in these contexts, because, like, that's just not what they are. And intuitively, most of us already get that. I've gotten really tired of this discourse where people try to draw the exact line for what kind of depictions are moral and not moral in fictional art contexts, when it goes from, like, these kinds of dynamics to, like, body, like, forms of furry. Like, congratulations, you got your way. There was this debate, this ongoing debate for a while about, like, exactly how much muzzle is ethical, and, like, are paws okay, or do you have to have creepy human hands on your fursona? Do you have to have plantigrade legs? Like, oh, the way you draw moths, this is a real thing. People be like, the way you draw moths, like, oh, it seems like you're too into feral or something. And it's like, what are we talking about? Like, there's a type of weird younger furry that tries to like litigate the exact self-expression of your Fursona's design and the exact line where it becomes too animal at some point, seemingly to just like either enforce their personal taste that they haven't processed properly. Like they're like, this, I don't like that way it's depicted. And since I feel some level of discomfort, that must mean that there's like a moral reason. Because every time I don't like something, there has to be a moral framework for why I don't like it. I can't just not like something or have personal taste or sometimes be a bit uncomfortable and not resolve that. It's like, no, it has to be bad in an objective way if I don't like something. And that means we need to stop it, which has led to a really bizarre amount of like freaking policing people's Fursona designs. Like, oh, you're a little too feral, your legs are too zigzaggy. I'm like, what are you doing? And like, there you go, congratulations. Now there is a payment processor that is litigating what your Fursona can be designed to like. And it's like, do we really want there to be a third party that has control here? I'm not saying that I blame those people for this happening, but I'm saying like, great, the world you hoped for is happening, I guess. Now we're all gonna suffer. Like, they didn't cause it, but it is the same end result. And it's like, it's deeply frustrating because like, I don't know how to tell these people that like, they're already furries. You're already a freak. I'm sorry. You already are a freak. I don't know how you like got in here and didn't like realize what you signed up for, but you're a freak in the circus. Like, this is the freak show. Everyone's a freak here. That's like the premise of the whole thing. You're supposed to embrace that. If you're gonna try to police the specific form of freak people are, you're kind of not really doing the whole thing correctly in the first place. But in particular, to the outsiders, it's all freak shit. Like, there's a lot of there's a lot of petty fandom drama that happens within the fandom. That's a lot of self-policing and drawing really weird moral lines and rules. And the people outside the fandom do not care about any of those rules and boundaries that you're setting up. Those specific weird limitations you're doing, as if like that'll be the part where if we just do all these things, we'll be acceptable now. We'll be the right kind of furry. We'll be the right kind of gay. No! The people that care enough to hate any of this hate all of it and hate you. And they won't care about the difference between you and the other people. You are just being a pick-me, but to the service of no one, because no one's impressed. Not even the people that you're trying to impress, the normies you're trying to impress, the religious people you're trying to impress. No! They see, there's no like moderate difference between these things. Like, they just see it all as the same thing, and they want you purged. They want you gone. These kinds of moderation things that are happening right now will only get worse if they're not stopped. Like, I desperately hope that the government can be pressured into full-on stopping our banks from moderating art the way they currently are, because they're completely out of control and completely outside of what any of them should be allowed to be doing. And unfortunately, it's an international issue because so many of the banks and payment processors are here in the United States. So if the United States doesn't step in and stop this stuff, they're going to be moderating art internationally for people because they're going to be applying the same rules to everyone. And so it's going to affect people that don't even live here, and those people have even less power to do anything about it. But if you ever feel the need to police other people's art and act like they're the reasons why people don't like furries or whatever, you're the problem. I cannot stress that enough. Like, you will never be good enough. You're chasing a fantasy that is insane. And we really could use you joining us here in the struggle and all being on the same fucking page here, because whenever we organize and try to do these things, we need to be on the same goddamn page, because everything that hurts the people you're making fun of will hurt you too. Queer art is being chipped away at the edges on every platform whenever they get the chance to do so, and they always pick the most acceptable targets, the most fringe stuff, the weirder stuff, the stuff that people find the most objectionable, one by one, until the overall alliance, the LGBTQ plus IA, I put the plus in the wrong spot, the LGBTQIA plus everything has less power, because there's fewer people left after they've deplatformed all of the fringe people, because we're a fringe group to begin with. They're just eating their way to the crust. That's how it works. That's their goal. They know it works that way. They say that whenever their documents leak. I'm not going to read through it right now, but I think it's even an actual quote that shows up in Project 2025 because they know that this strategy works. This is a not very coherent video. It's just emotional and ranty and it's all over the place. But I'm just like, I'm so tired, man. I'm so tired of watching so many of my friends and peers just fear for their livelihoods, people that are already struggling to get by in the first place, just wondering like, is today the day I lose my platform? Is today the day that my specific form of art is declared illegal? Or not even illegal, but just like deplatformed quietly by policy changes made behind the scenes by third parties. If you live in the United States, call your representative, ask them why they're not doing anything about this. Reinforce again and again that this is important to you and it's important to other people, and the more they hear about it, they're going to be like, what's going on here? And they're going to be wondering what's going on about this thing. Not that many people actually interact with politicians directly in a lot of these cases, so you can affect local change by actually reaching out to these people and impressing upon them that you're concerned about this issue. Like, hey, payment processors are going rogue and they're moderating art and banning things that aren't even illegal. What are you doing about it? You run this place, right? Act like they're the ones caught with their pants down, because they are, and shame them politely, but you know, like embarrass them in a posh sort of way, because the religious right is winning. They're running half the countries now. They're actively censoring our art, and in the meantime, just the least we can do is not be on their side. Please do not be a useful idiot. See you next time.